Apparently, as reported by Brian Inton, the 1122 King Road house, after it was demolished, has been buried. This is the crime scene for the Idaho 4 Moscow student murder tragedy, or massacre. And after they demolish a home, apparently they transported the rubble to a solid processing facility because of concerns. Officials apparently had concerns and wanted it immediately buried because they were afraid people were going to take souvenirs.
Yeah, and that's what when I was reading something online, they were saying that there was a local, no official or anything, no police, but just a local was saying that they were told somewhere or heard somewhere that it was because they were afraid of people taking souvenirs. So yeah, I think it's super weird. I think it's super strange. And for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, I just don't know why that is such a major concern. It's odd to me. Is that the true intention behind burying it? Because it seems unlikely that they would still consider it as evidence and like potentially go back and unearth it and look through it. Probably not. I would hope they would have sorted through it to make sure there wasn't like a knife hidden in a vent, you know, or something like that before they buried it. Before they even tore it down, hopefully. But it just seems really odd because I don't understand. Like, I would never want to take a souvenir, and I know you've said you would never want to take a souvenir, but there are people who would want to take a souvenir. So what is wrong with that? Like, why put so much time and effort into burying this several feet under the ground, apparently, to make sure people couldn't take a piece?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I can come up with, or the reason that I think why they did it, is because if something ends up coming up during the trial, they probably want to be able to have access to be able to, like, you know, pull the house out and glue it back together in case they need something.
That's for sure it.
Yep, definitely it.
Great theory.
But no, really. Yeah, I think it's stupid. I think it's really dumb. I've said on our lives before, I think I said on the podcast last week, even when we were talking about the house being torn down, it's absolutely and totally pointless. I mean, this is in the Greek Row area. They could have left it up. I'm not even going to go down that argument again, around, you know, the supposed guilt, because the fact that they're tearing the crime scene down just solidifies the fact that the state believes it's Brian Kohberger, or they want it to be Brian Kohberger, or both, you know. But yeah, I personally wouldn't ever want a piece of a house. However, I also don't think there's anything wrong with people that would want a piece of the house. If you're tearing it down, does that matter? Like, does it hurt anybody that somebody has, you know, a piece of a siding, a door knob, or something from a case that was such a big deal in their life? I just don't understand it. I think it's a gross amount of control to try and force. I don't even know. It makes absolutely no sense.
Because it's trash. It's trash. It's rubble. It's going to rot in the ground. Like, who cares? Like, you don't consider it a value anymore, which is why you tore it down and put it in a landfill. So why does it matter if anyone takes trash?
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
with
why
you.
is that of your concern? It feels almost like government overreach, to be honest, like that you are so concerned with people taking trash.
Yeah, it just feels like a huge waste of taxpayer money, because imagine what they had to do.
They had it guarded.
Dig the hole.
They had it guarded too.
Yeah, but imagine the heavy machinery they had to they had to rent, or the company that they had to use to get the heavy machinery to tear down the house, the heavy machinery they had to use to dig the hole, the heavy machinery that they had to use to transport it there, the guards that they had to use during all of that situation and time. And what is the actual point?
Is it taxpayer dollars? Because I believe it's the university who is paying for this, right?
I have no clue. I literally don't know. And I think that's problematic in itself.
Yeah, that we don't get to know all of those
Yeah,
details.
because technically, if it is the university, it almost has to be taxpayer money, because I feel like if it is the university, then why was it okay for the university to ruin an active crime scene?
Well,
wouldn't that be breaking the law?
Well, unless it wasn't considered active anymore.
Well, that's impossible, because in order for a case to be considered closed, it has to meet certain requirements within the law, and it's not that yet. A suspect is not closing a case.
Right, yeah. But from what I read, they're not violating any Idaho laws, and it's not considered an active crime scene anymore. But you're right, it's not a closed case either. And this is, we've never really seen this before. You know, we have houses from the 1800s.
Are you sure it's not considered an active crime scene?
It's not anymore.
Active doesn't mean there's people actively working it.
Yeah,
it means that there's an open case.
An open investigation.
Yeah.
In that they're using that crime scene and they're looking at it. Like it hasn't been an active crime scene for a while.
No. We need to triple check that. And a breaking news update is not the right place to do it. We'll dig into it and talk about it further on the True Crime Talk Show, but I'm almost like 99% sure that in order for a crime scene to be considered active, the case either has to be labeled as closed, cold, or something else. It literally has to be one of those things, and it's none of those things, therefore making it an active crime scene. Active in like our brains makes us want to feel like it needs to be actively worked, and that's not the case. It just means that the case is not closed. It isn't open. Anytime there's an active case, the investigation's open.
I understand what you're saying, but I think an active crime scene is only an active crime scene as long as the investigators have assigned value to that crime scene and they no longer were doing that. I think that once they stop investigating that crime scene, they say we've gotten everything from value from here. The only thing that makes me question that and what you're saying might be true is the fact that the prosecution went back right before the demolition. The defense went back right before them, and the prosecution went there. They've been there twice in the past couple months, and then the defense
went there right after the defense.
They went there.
The right way to say it.
The prosecution went there. The defense went there. Then the prosecution went there again right after the defense. So I was saying it backwards. Sorry if that was confusing. Yeah, literally days before the demolition.
Yeah, and the prosecution went right after the defense, literally like the next day, and it was an unplanned visit, which is so shady. That's
of course,
like
they get
so overbearing, and
I know the defense had to request it a month ahead of time. The prosecution literally was just like, "Hey, can we come in?" And yeah, of course, they can just go in whenever they want.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. This case I feel like just has a big blackout curtains over it. Don't look over here, but do look over here. It's really weird.
It is weird. And I when I'm looking at it, I literally Bryan Kohberger's the furthest thing from my mind when I'm thinking and digging into this investigation. And every time I look at this, I just see a huge, major, massive, gross abuse of power.
Yeah.
I don't think the experience is there to match.
I have a really one of my first topics I'm talking about, which is about the DOJ intern policy about IGG, and also some things said in a video that I watched recently by an expert. I was like, that sounds just like Moscow, Idaho. Like, wow, what he said really it hit hard, and it made me think about the investigations we've seen where we felt this way. Delphi, this one, other cases where people were convicted and they were innocent. It's the same vibes that I get from the investigators, the officials involved, that I'm getting here. And it's overreach. It's like they're too
controlling.
They're too controlling, but they're also like set on getting a conviction to the point at the detriment of the case, at the detriment of justice. Just getting a conviction is not justice.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not.
Yeah.
It is not. So, but I want to know what you think. Do you think there's any other motives behind burying the house other than the whole souvenir thing? Do you have an argument of why taking a souvenir is wrong and should not be done, and that what they did was right? I want to know what you think. Always open to, other opinions and ideas. That's what the show's all about. So let us know. Leave it in the comments.
Yeah.